However, joining us in our studio this morning is Dr. Aliyu Ilias, who is a current affairs analyst and an astute economist. Good morning to you, Doctor.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, Doctor, we'll start with one story that comes as a surprise, despite the amount of intelligence that was provided by a certain militia leader who is now demised, who originates from Benue State, a certain Tewasi Agwaza, who was aka Ghana, who in 2020 told Nigerians when he turned himself seeking an amnesty plea with the Nigerian army that he was contracted by certain groups in Niger Republic who were looking to capture 4 states in Nigeria. Now, we've seen these 4 states in the Middle Belt suffer recurrent reprisal attacks by foreign terror groups, as confirmed by the Benue State Governor this morning. Yet the NSA is saying that the federal government is well on its game in approaching this issue. Why is it that with such intelligence, this man was killed, other than being used to find the true sponsors of this unending terrorism in the Middle Belt?
Right. So, well, looking at what he said and without even conceding, you look at most of the attacks we have the element of a foreigner daring. In fact, let's start from the bombing that happens at UN House in Area 1, I recall. It was traced down that a Somalia person was actually used to do that. So it simply means that such intelligence should not be taken, without finding more facts. Look at Lakurawa. They are also traced that they actually came in and they were thinking these foreigners will not hurt us. They will not, they tend to create shit for people, but with time they started causing mayhem. So that simply means that what he was saying, as at that time, they should have actually looked at that message itself and do their finding. And sometimes, that's why the Western world is a bit better compared to African. In Western worlds, when they discover such thing, they capture you, they start grilling you, started asking you questions. You will recall that the issue of this boy that tried to even bomb an aircraft. I've forgotten his name now. One Nigerian that tried to bomb aircraft. They did not kill him up till now. They kept him somewhere and started interrogating him so that they can get much more, facts, findings, and know if it's
who the true sponsors
exactly
are.
And how they can from there, gather more information to do. So for me to have rushed to kill that man who said he was contracted by foreigners to actually carry out this mayhem, they should have find out the more. And I can tell you up to now, I'm still convinced that no any terror especially in northern part that does not have those foreign hands daring.
Now, the visit of the NSA in Benue State, a lot of persons have looked at it as ceremonial. It's only the empathic thing to do, but does this translate to improved security in Benue State?
Right. I listened to him and he made 2 words that I was not even comfortable with. Especially compare us to Afghanistan and Sudan, and that's a sad one to have even mentioned. How can you be saying we see Sudan, he went to and what's the meaning of that? So for Nigeria, I think we need more beyond rhetorics. What I saw he does is much more of it, because the control and command is in his hand. So we want to see you do something practical, and like I always said, you cannot fight a crisis like in Benue, Jos, and maybe in Northwest. It cannot be kinetic. You must approach a kinetic approach. So what are you doing? I expect him to have bring out some intelligence that they have carried out. This is the level of things. This is what we are going to. But he just did the normal thing that we usually see. So it's much more ceremonial. Let's say they actually are dead. I think we need to do more. And our DSS, our police need also to come in, because we seem to be so confident about the only army. Our military way of doing things is quite different from what a DSS can do and what a police can do. So we need to come holistically and approach in 2 manners, because if you can trace like what the person that was killed then, the alleged terrorist was killed then, if they can look at what he said, they can actually trace it back to where it's actually coming from and get this sponsor. Because I can tell you, it is not easy to continuously attack it without somebody financing.
Because in his narrative back then in 2020, I remember watching the interview live. He said that he was offered 350 million naira to deliver Taraba states to them, and he was even insinuating that the money was supposed to be more of a money that would be used to smoothen their way past security in unleashing mayhem. Now, in the wake of those strong allegations that he has also made, is the narrative the NSA was also tailoring whilst he was warning against politicizing the attacks, that the attacks are targeted at making the current administration look bad, and whereas the administration met security in a critical state, let me use his words now, in a critical state. Do you think that the lives of Nigerians are trivialized, making it look as though these issues are more political than the actual value placed on the life of a Nigerian?
I think they're actually running from the facts, because when you are taking over an administration, you are taking it over with its liability. You will say no, you are trying to shift. Now at this point in time, they are trying to shift blame that things are more worse than when they come. We don't want to agree with that. You have to do what you can do to make sure that those things subside, because you actually, the first thing is security of life and property, and life is becoming so difficult in Nigeria that you cannot even move. Look at what happened in Kwara, and before you know, it gets adjusting gradually, and every state is having their own fair share of insecurity, which is a serious problem. Nigerian armies are in over 30 states in Nigeria trying to curb any form of insurgency and terrorist attack. Until we hold it holistically and make sure we create solution that is holistic, that's when we can solve the problem, and it must come with intelligence.
Now, before we move on to another related incident, is the economic implications of this, because I also listened to the Benue State Governor. He said some of these communities have been taken over, so there's some issues of land grabbing. If communities like this have terrorists dwelling in them, it's not like they committed the attack and disappeared. Why is it difficult for our security operatives, noting the economic losses in terms of what is accruing to the state, don't have a concerted effort of stopping it?
Right. I listened to the Benue State Governor earlier, and he said Benue State is the food basket of the nation, not even nation, even Africa. Now, if we had such challenge in food basket, what do you expect? And our problem in Nigeria is food inflation related. That simply means there is that correlation between what is happening in Benue and what is happening affecting our economy. Until we see it from that lens, that's when we can know that you must make sure, because you cannot. I saw it on TV while they're interviewing. People are moving in drove out of their community, so they're not moving only. The farm is going to suffer. Nobody will want to go into farm, and that's why we have more people in urban settings. If you look at Abuja, you see people coming from different, especially northeast. People trying to leave those war-torn area, and don't blame them, because if my life is not safe, I will have to move. So they will have to leave agriculture and look for other ways of surviving, and Nigeria as a whole suffer food problem, and that's why we are having serious food inflation. So,
like you rightly mentioned, these people migrating now leave their communities that are now inhabited by bandits.
Right.
Do you think that there can be concerted efforts by security agencies to reclaim and resettle these people back?
100%. That's their responsibility. How would they do that? They have to fight back and make sure that they provide adequate security for people, because Nigeria, if you look at Benue very well, it's falling into middle, because it's not, you only share boundary with Taraba, right? So at that Taraba level, there could be a kind of security in that area, so that you can know that it's now towards the Abuja axis now, right? Our Nasarawa axis. So until you find a way to cut off that area and make sure that those people do not have way to penetrate. But can we also leave Taraba? Taraba is still not out of it. Most time you recall, Taraba is always having issue, and the issue of land grabbing, that's the essence of those people. If you look at what they are trying to do, try to shift people away from their land and take over their land. That's the problem we are facing. Even the same thing applies to us. It's still land related issue until we find a way to solve it. And going back to what he said, the Tase, or what is his name? Tewase. What he said that time, looking at it now, there is a correlation between what he said and what's actually happening
now.
Right.
Now, let's look at another angle of the story which you raised, referring to the Kwara incident and finding a solution. The IGP has now deployed what he calls special anti-bandit squads following this attack, quite sadly in Kwara, that has left 7 people dead. That special anti-bandit squad, I don't know your confidence in them. We've seen a different tactical unit deployed in Plateau.
Different ways, different operation, different group to actually solve the problem. But the problem is that how tactical are they? Like I always said, if you want to catch these people, you have to be very well prepared and arrange yourself. Because if you look at them, they are as well more sophisticated. They have weapons. We must also make sure we reduce the light weapon, the way they come into Nigeria, and make sure that those people don't have much more powers. Then our intelligence must be there. If there could be intelligence, they would have known those people are coming to attack such area. Because I recall most people before now, you see Nigerian police you will never see uniform on them, but they will go to different axes to actually get intelligence of what is likely to happen. Until we start in that direction, I don't think, because for him to have even said they have banned what have you anti-bandit, I think it's uncalled for. We want to see them operation. We want to see their operation. Oh, these people have actually bring this down. You know, the account of positive information that will give Nigerian confidence. That's what I think we need.
Borrowing a lead from your earlier recommendation on the need for a non-kinetic approach.
Right.
We keep talking about being in a technological survey age where we have unmanned drone surveillance that can help in providing some of the intel and surveillance in terms of these areas that are more hit by bandit attacks. Do you think that that's the type of unit we should be hearing that has been deployed?
Exactly. So what I actually expect is that somebody could even be in Abuja. His business is to monitor all those terrorist prone area. So when you see an attack, you give an intelligence, the air people will go there, you know, the people on the ground will go there. This is what we expect. Not that at this age you see want to say until the, you know, if we are much more reactive, we are not proactive. So to solve this kind of problem, you have to be proactive, you have to be on ground at a point, and you have to be monitoring it every now and then. So if there's any move, you can actually attack it on time. These are the things. Even now, I recall in the National Assembly, if a senator can stand up and said, we have number of pistols in this National Assembly, and he was saying that he's checking it from his app. That's a special app that can tell him how many guns are in this environment. So why can't we also do that? And when you go to those environments, you see, you put up your, you know, you put on the app, and you see that, oh, this area, there's a particular area that there is, you know, firearm, there is particular, you know, so that you can monitor and actually go there and say, well, bring it out, or will destroy you alongside it. So these are the things we must actually start to be using to stop these problems.
While still dealing with the issues in the news that speak to rising insecurity in Niger State, the governor Umaru Bago has gone viral in a social media post while looking to address the issue of rising thuggery and banditry in Niger State. A curfew has been imposed on motorcycle movements from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. But quite sadly, the comments of the governor has been misconstrued because the part that's now gone viral is where he's talking about the need to arrest people carrying dreadlocks and looking rough in some way. What do you make of this rising security in Niger State and the approach of the government imposing a curfew? We also see the NBA advocating for state police.
Right. I saw there was a day I went to Babangida market in Suleja. So when I was going, I just see people, you know, there are some people approaching a particular Okada person, and they told the guy behind the Okada to step down. And when he stepped down, they bring out scissors and they are cutting the dreadlock of that guy. So they did it like for 3 persons, and I was wondering, what does this simply implies? I tried to find out. So maybe that's part of why people are saying it, but I've seen it happen live in Suleja. And also I went to a place called Wushishi in Niger State, called Niger State. So after Zungiru, you know, we passed through the polytechnics and we went for wedding. So when we were coming back, we saw some vigilantes. As they are coming back, they're telling us that we should go back. I was wondering, you are supposed to secure us. You're also running from a similar terrorist attack. Do you know that I have to turn around and we have to start running hectare scatter? So to tell you how susceptible those areas are. So for him to have said that, I don't want to misconstrue him. You know, Nigeria is funny now. Any element of those information should be taken seriously. So for him to have said, because if you look at what actually happening now, it is because of idleness, because of people that are unserious that bring about this, because it is idle that they actually happen. So when there is what we call tout, all those things, they end up becoming such things. So if he's bringing a caution, so I won't blame him, because the state is so volatile. So you need to go to that state and see what I'm trying to say. And you remember, those states have much more community than any state in Nigeria. I don't know if you are aware, and they are very far apart, because different attacks. So it's better you bring that caution, you know, to the public. It's not a bad thing if they are doing it with sincerity. And they also actually have I've forgotten the name now. People like vigilante, but not vigilante then, that they were using in that say they're actually abusing it as a point. Some of us raise voice that the way they're actually using them to attack innocent people are much, and we saw it subside. So it's better they make that announcement so that those people also will be cautioned. If they arrest a lot of them that have those negative tendencies, it's a good one for Nigeria.
Now, Doctor had mentioned the correlationship with states that have vast resources or agricultural potentials being more prone to this rising spate of insecurity.
Right.
Do you think that state policing should be institutionalized at the level where it is incorporated across the states that share certain similarities and are prone to these attacks?
If you ask me, I think we are wasting time on state policing, and things are getting bad day by day. For me, I'm a proponent of state police because I went to particular environments and they have to ask me, where are you actually going? If I didn't pick offense, I'd have to explain myself. I'm here to so and person because, and they said we are sorry, we have not seen you, and we have seen you go up and down. It's simply because they police their environment. They know who is who, and they are monitoring who comes in and who goes. I think that's the best thing to happen to us, because if you look at those core village, like in my village, my state, if you go to my village, people know everybody. You know, they have to even ask. At a point, they have to look at me. Okay, this person is from so family, because you can actually know who and who is who, and that's what will save us. Because in the long run, people in an environment may hardly cause the problem, but even after they want to cause problem, they have to invite people to come into that environment. Also, until we bring about state policing, whereby we get to know ourselves, because you tell somebody from Castina to go to Ebonyi, you know, to police Ebonyi, it's quite funny. How can he understand what is in that environment? If they are even speaking, you know, he will not understand. But people from that environment who understand the language, you understand the terrain of that environment, and they can easily understand even the traditional ruler can also identify with the person. I think that's the way to go, because the way we are vast, we must also look at that area and bring what fits Nigeria. So for me, I'm a proponent of the state police, and I saw that the 10th assembly are also trying to actually bring it up, but it's getting late.
Talking about the 10th assembly, the Senate leader, Senator Bamidele, talked about some requirements in terms of the legal frameworks to guard the activities of state police. It's coming in the wake of response to some agitations and concerns of Nigerians over the overbearing power
of political elite. I agreed, but the thing is that how many are those people with political power? How many are Nigerians suffering the power? The fact is that there's always room for amendment. So if you find it after a year, if you deploy it and you see that there is an abuse of power, we can now have state police the way we have federal police will still remain. And when it comes to the issue of election, you bring federal police in. Even as at now, you have also seen where party in power take advantage of the security agencies, you know, where in terms of deployment and what have you. So we would not say because of the political elite or political office holders we will not do the needful. People are dying every day. I can tell it is people that they are being accounted for that we are seeing. A lot of things that actually happen that is unaccounted.
Now, talking about the need for amendments as we go on,
yes,
we've seen tenure after tenure of an IGP, the order for the withdrawal of police mobile force from VIP, who use them as escorts. And despite this order, we still find highly placed elected and appointed officials still flouting this order by the IGP, and yet there seems to be no penalties for it.
Well, I don't think we can get a solution to that. What I would say is that let us have more police, because I don't see this political elite say that they will live without police. You know, and it's because of the economy. They don't understand that it's the economy that makes you to be scared. If you can see the head of UK, what's his name, now moving with bicycle to his next area, and he's moving around the streets, you know, without any form of serious security. It's simply because they are governing their people very well. It's because of we are not governing us very well. That's why, in fact, we that live around airport road, come and ask us. Most time you just see that they blocked everywhere simply because VIP want to actually pass. Those are the things we suffered.
Now in Ilesha Baruba attacks, we hear that a person who was allegedly the bandits' informant has also been nabbed by the police. Talking about approaches in community policing, in Edo, the governor chose to suspend traditional rulers over the recurrent incidences of kidnappings and insecurity. Yes. Some persons in community who either serve as informants or the traditional rulers who should be some sort of stopgap in this insecurity fight who are non-performing. How commendable are these approaches?
Well, for me, like I said earlier, I've mentioned traditional rulers. I think they are the key to it, because there is no way an environment will be in vacuum without a leader. The traditional ruler is expected to make sure that he give information to the governor or to whoever is the authority, could be chairman, to be councillor of that local government, because there's no way an attack will happen, that there will not be sign even before the attack itself. And I commend Governor Okwebolo, because if he doesn't bring about such, and before he bring about such, there are some things we have not got to hear. There's some intelligence he actually has. That's why he chooses to suspend the traditional ruler. So we must make sure that those traditional rulers also hold responsible. If they get to know that, if the governor or the authority get to know that he is in that area and things are happening, is not informing them, they will have to let him out of his traditional titles. That will make them to be much more active. If you go to Southwest, I think those traditional rulers are conscious of that already, and that's why if there's any information, they call the Amotekun, they inform them that this is what is going on, can you come to our rescue and what have you. So I think that will solve the problem, though some of them may be scared that if they give information they may come for them, but you cannot still compare non-state actor to the actual state actor. So I think it's a good one that traditional rulers have been cautioned. That is a good signal for them to do the needful.
Now, whilst we rest these issues of insecurity in the news, let's turn our attention to some economic stories making the rounds. Our next story is on the report that the Nigerian Customs Service has exceeded its targeted revenue for the first quarter of 2025 by 106 billion naira, recording 1.75 trillion naira in the first 3 months of the year. The Controller of Custom, NSCP Bashir Adeni, disclosed this in a press briefing in Abuja yesterday. How much of a big gain is this in terms of targeted revenue in improving our economy?
Well, as an economist, I don't see that as a gain because of its negative externalities. Now, I discovered that since this man came around, or not, maybe a year ago, tariff has been increased indiscriminately, and that's what translated to what they actually accounted for. So sometimes when you are making the profit, when you're making the gains, you have to look at the negative externalities that come with it. So if you ask me now, the gain cannot be compared to the negative impact of it, because if you want to import a car now, a car that is being sold for 5 million before is around 12 million naira. In a car that you clear with maybe 1 million naira, you have to look for 4 million naira and not only car, other consumables as well. So for me, I think the increment on their part is actually too much. For me, that's what I think. I don't agree that you make some money at the expense of citizens. It's actually affecting the economy. So it's like you are making more gain in your own, and you're actually losing through reducing purchasing power of the citizen. But for the budget, that may be commendable. But what about citizens that are actually paying this money?
There's also reports of lesser economic activities across some borders.
If I can tell you clearly, Idiroko, there was a documentary about it. If you go there, it's like a shadow of itself. Recall that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu decided to open the border. It doesn't make any difference. And people are actually suffering. In fact, if you go to border, they said there should not be filling station from a 20-kilometer to the border. People there are suffering. Where will they get fuel from? So there is no operation. There is no, as it used to boom before. It is not like that. And they are complaining. No business activities in that environment just because of policy direction of the administration.
What are some of the recommendations that we can make to the government to turn around the situation in terms of this indiscriminate increase in tariffs and the lack of economic activities at the moment?
Right. So the economic activities, because I recall I've passed through that axis several times, especially Lagos, Benin Republic, and what have you. What we discovered is before, within that environment, if I have people that have left that area to Abuja now because there is no economic activities again. So there's some. We are not saying that it should be illegal. It can be legal and perfect. First and foremost, why will you say there should not be filling station 20 kilometers to border?
The fear of fuel smuggling?
Well, I don't think so. If it's fear of smuggling, there's a way you can monitor beyond you keeping people suffering. So if you have a bike, you have to go as far. You're even encouraging more black market operation there, and other activities. There is like a buying and selling point. So when people bring, people buy actually. So you must sometimes give room for those businesses, because those small business makes a lot of money in our economy. So, but for now, that place is like a dead zone.
And now, talking about the tariffs on imported items, particularly you talked about automobiles, is there an approach to encourage more imports at a reduced tariff? We've seen the import waiver duty for certain agricultural items that many have rated it a failure, said it didn't perform. Do you think that this policy adjustments actually birth any change?
For me, I've not seen how any positive in it, but the fact is that I was thinking when they were raising those tariffs that they're going to make new car, there's a way they can help that it will be much more cheaper, because if you are buying a Tokumo car at 14 million and you're having a new car at 20 million, you may consider it that it's even better in the long run, but it's not making any meaning. So for me, I think they could find a way of changing the pattern. You could say, okay, those cars can actually come to actually assemble, because we don't have much of them assemble. Look at how many SUV the Senate actually bought. With that, it's enough conditions to tell them that come and assemble. Be assembling here. A country like South Africa, they only have 5 brands of car, and in that 5 brands of car that is, you must come there to either produce or assemble, and that brings economic activity. So for our border, they can give, the tariff need to be lower, because it doesn't help Nigerians at all. Perhaps you categorize maybe for years. So you are doing 2003 vehicle this amount, 2005 this amount. You can, there's a way you can do it that it will allow citizens to actually breathe, not the way it is now. So that tariff they are getting, for me, I don't think is justifiable compared to the hardship people go through to bring something into Nigeria.
Now, talking about alternatives to the imported vehicles, we have Innocent in Nigeria here. We hear Dangote in Kaduna is in collaboration with Peugeot.
We have Nord, you have Jack and what have you, but are they cheap? That is the question. They are not cheap.
How affordable are they?
They are not affordable. And another thing is that, there's a way you create a scheme where that people can actually afford to buy. Maybe government will say, okay, if you buy this car, you can pay in 15 years, you can pay in 10 years. Those things that need to come on board. But Nigeria will be encouraged to use those cars. Then Nigerians go for Toyota because of one reason: second-hand value. Does those ones have that level of value, or even 70% of that value? Because every Nigerian wants to sell one and get another one. That's our calculation, and that's the challenge we're having.
Now, moving away from the recorded revenue by the Nigerian Customs Service, which Dr. Aliyu Ilias says has its negative externalities in terms of the effects on the citizens who ought to patronize the borders with the irregular hike in import tariffs. Another tariff at the global stage has also affected projections from the International Monetary Fund that has cut Nigeria's projected growth trajectory for 2025 to 3%, and is hinging this on lower oil prices. It's coming at a time when not only Nigeria is affected, we're seeing the likes of India, South Africa, the US also affected by these projections from the IMF. Let's get your thoughts on this, Doctor.
Well, I think it is quite, it's clearer that our budget was $80 per barrel, and now it is coming down to around $60 per barrel. So it's definitely going to affect our budget. It's going to affect our economic activities. Our mainstay still remain oil. So then, even not for Dangote to have hit us more, but with Dangote now, you can even have balance of trade and balance of payment through that.
Naira for crude deal.
No, not Naira for crude. Remember, even US is getting aviation fuel from Dangote in Nigeria. So also other countries are buying from Nigeria. That simply means that we have something to export. It will also help our
so if I get you correctly, it would have been disastrous if we didn't have the largest single train refinery.
The negative part of it is that ideally, if you have fuel price going up, a country is supposed to benefit.
Especially if you're an oil producer like Nigeria.
Do you know we are not benefit? Because the more it goes up as a Nigerian citizen, the more we pay more. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So if we have it going to 100, instead of us to be raking more money as a government, citizens in Nigeria will have to also buy more, because the global commodities. So until we find a way, and that's where Naira for crude should have worked.
Because if I understand it correctly, we're still benchmarking the price of crude as it is at the global stage.
Exactly. There's not any internal benefit that we have. the NNPC is not selling lower compared to global price. Is there anything they are doing? And now subsidy, they will see subsidy in some area, because they will tell you that you have been buying around 1,500, but you are buying at 951,000. It's because of the benchmark. I mean, the subsidy have been fixed. So I think until we have self-sufficiency, I don't know when the other refinery will come up, until we have self-sufficiency and abundance in Nigeria.
You've raised another very critical point, because we saw the protest yesterday.
Right.
A certain group is calling for a probe of the NNPCL has run under the former GCO Mele Kyari, saying that there are huge financial atrocities that need to be unveiled.
Right, because especially in the area of subsidy.
And turnaround of these refineries that yet to be functional.
Subsidy is gone and subsidy still remain. So it's how they call it. It's like it's oxymoron we call it now, because you are saying that you remove subsidy. Now you have removed subsidy at the first day of this government, but subsidy still find its way into the economy. Again, that's not a good one, and military was ahead. So for me, then the issue of turnaround, they said Kaduna is 80% completion or 60%, what have you. It takes a lot of time, and Port
Harcourt is at 65% as well.
That's not a good one, and even the main new one is not working. It's the old one that you actually fix. I don't know the rationale behind
and the humongous amounts of money that were pumped into the
turnaround. The only thing Mele Kyari has worked for him that during his time was the transition, from NNPC to NNPCL. So there's a lot of things that actually, and he's the longest serving GCO. So it's a lot of things. For me, it's good they probe. When you probe and we probe sincerely, it will give us another benchmark, and you understand how to move on going forward.
Now, the other angle to this conversation of the IMF forecast is on our GDP rebasing. And the IMF is saying that despite the rebasing of our economy, that by 2026, our inflation rate will still cross 37%.
Rebasing from 34 to 24.
24, yes.
Right. So now they are now saying that it's going to still move. So that's, I don't think it will get to that 37. Wow. I don't think with this rebasing. Remember, we have not even rebased our GDP. So by the time we rebase our GDP, we'll see, we'll be considered more. Is that we are first in Africa or we're second, and it will also give us much more pedestal. So actually, but the thing is, the rebasing or no rebasing does not reflect on common man. We still buy what we buy at the same price, at the same level, at the same.
And this is a challenge for people who don't understand economics at a much advanced level, much like yourself. Because if we're saying that the inflation has lowered and we're improving, and that 3% growth in the year 2025, people are expecting to see some respite when they go to the market. So, but we seem to be lost in that conversation.
You cannot see any difference until even this government was expecting 15% decrease, decreasing to 15, and we said, how do I call it? Is an ambition which I don't think it's possible. But for us to get 37%, no, I don't think it worked. And for them to say we are going to go to 2.7 next year, I think next year we'll do better, because we would have had more, and election will be around, so things will still have to flow more. Government want to appeal to people through their policy framework. They want to lower some burden, and that will actually push the economic to boost the economy.
Talking about government policy, I also listened to the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun. He used the term long-term economic effects. He says that in the long term, these reforms will birth most of the respite we're seeing. I see you laughing already. How long is this long term, and how more can Nigerians afford to tighten their belts?
In economics, when you say long run, some of us are so cautious. That's why will you say long run? When you are in power for 2 years, you're supposed to see the reflection of what you actually do. So when you say long run, are you telling us 10 years? You would not even be in power. So that's why you must do. That's why government is a continuum. You must look at what your predecessor is doing very well, and you have to key into it to actually make it better before introducing your own. So when you say long run after 2 years, for me that long run is maybe a forlorn hope.
Now, it's not just a Nigerian problem, because I looked at the report, and the IMF is also predicting sad news in terms of a global recession, whereas at October of 2024 they were projecting 25% likelihood for that to happen, Now, with the global trade wars and Trump's tariffs,
Exactly.
they have raised that projection to a 40% probability of us having a global recession.
The damage the Trump policy has actually brought will take like 1 year plus to even come out of it, because the trade war, the imbalance, it's a serious thing, and now people are more countries are more exposed now, so they're having that trade cold war that they want to like be cautioned, because they don't know what can, and Trump is just starting. So that's another thing that you have to, and those are what I'm actually consider to bring about that decision. It's a forecast, so it can also be changed.
And I want to use the term long term again in comparison to the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the projection of his minister Wale Edun as against Trump. In the long or short run, with Trump heading the way he is, he seems not to be backing down, while China is also replying him toe to toe. How would this portend for global trade?
Right. So in terms of global trade, you see these two leaders, and I will take you back to Nigeria. Nigeria do more trade with China last year compared to
the US.
The US. So that simply means two of them are actually trying to get more get advantage of the whole world. But for me, I don't want to blame Trump, honestly, if you ask me, because Trump is they are discovering in America that China is taking over the market, especially if you look at Africa. China is doing all what they can do, and that's why you see Nigeria also is now a signatory, not full anyway, with BRICS, because they're also looking at that area to do business with them. So in terms of global trade, it's going to be a challenging one, but it's a good one in the long run. When there is a trouble like this, in the long run, to bat more solutions and much more options. So it's a good one sometimes when you have this global, the leading global economy, trying to drag themselves, it's exposed more, because all of them are now looking for markets. China is looking for more markets, America is looking for more markets, and that will be to the advantage of global community. Look at the issue of electric vehicle. That's what actually caused the problem. One of the problem, we are aware that America is championing electric vehicle, but China is now doubling what they actually do, and that's where the problem comes, and their own seem to be much cheaper, much more affordable, as it were. So I think it's a good one for the global community. If this does not happen, it will expose a lot of things to global and I'm sure Nigeria also is learning from it, because if you ask me, Trump is now saying we should pay, is it 14%, but recall, do you know we are collecting 27% from them? So that simply means we are still at advantage, but Trump is saying come and negotiate with me. If you negotiate with me, I know. So, and at this point in time, we have to look for another market. Just like what I said about Dangote. Dangote will not wait for only America to buy from him. He will sell to South Africa, Niger, any country that choose to buy from. And that's why you must make sure that you have more customers, so that you won't have issues going forward. It's a good one.
Now, it's important to also note that part of the caveat attached to that report is that Nigeria needs strong policy responses to this external headwinds to be able to forge its own direction out of this predicted global recession. What are some other recommendations in terms of strong policy responses beyond finding alternative markets to trade with that Nigeria can explore?
Right. Well, so when you talk about solutions to Nigeria, productivity is just our solutions. So when we increase our own value chain, so those things we are taking out, we now have to add value to it at home. When you add value to it, it will give you much more, and it would have helped your macro economy in terms of employment, in terms of inflation rate. These are the things. So until you come back home and say, okay, what do we have? We have oil. Thank God that people like Dangote is adding value. It's now Dangote petrochemical. You can add value to it at home and send it out. So other produce, that's what we have to do. Now we must look for other trading partner beyond, and that's why BRICS and AFCTA, African Free Trade area, have to be well approached. You have to approach it very well. And what's the approach we have to look at, even the AFCTA, is that we must also not accept everything for Nigeria to be a dumping ground. Because like textile, some commodities, tell them that you don't bring that to Nigeria. These are what I want you to bring to you. That's what South Africa approaches. Up to South Africa has not ratified it, because they said no. We want to give you what you can bring.
But wouldn't this spell tougher times for commodity exporters?
Well, it does not really matter if it's to our advantage. You know why? We have a lot of advantage in Africa. We have the population. We also have the purchasing power to an extent. Because, like I told you, was it in Rwanda? I discovered that Volkswagen is producing. And what's the population of Rwanda? 13 million. And did not produce where you have 200 million population with purchasing power. They are producing where we have 13 million. That simply means our policy direction is not good. Imagine Nigeria say no, Volkswagen, you are banned from Nigeria until you come in and produce. That would have bring a lot of positive advantage to Nigeria.
The Nollywood actor Ime Bishop, popularly known as Okon Lagos, went viral a couple of days ago. In his message to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he says, I'll just refer to that message, President Tinubu, please take advantage of this US-China trade war. Redirect factories of victimized luxury brands to Nigeria. Aba, Kanu, Uyo, Port Harcourt will be ready. We have the cheapest labor in the world. And we are a staggering 200 plus million hardworking good people. Tinubu will take advantage. This was his message to the president in the wake of his visit to Paris and UK.
I don't even read what he said, but that's what I'm actually saying. We have to take advantage of it and look at what we can produce, you know, support people. You know, I expect by now, you know, Aba, Kano, you know, Lagos, you know, these people would have been more production, and Africa is even enough for us to start with. You know, what are we actually selling to Niger? What are we selling to South Africa? You know, these are the things you must look at very, very well. And what's the problem in Africa, in Nigeria? Lack of fund. And now, do you know our interest rate, MPR? Very, very high. So until we bring those things down and allow small business to actually thrive, because if you go to Aba, people that are sewing clothes, making shoes, they need small fund. They need good machines to actually work, and that's what will give solution. So I actually agree with the actor.
Well, it's in the light of a recent press briefing at the ongoing IMF/World Bank spring meeting in Washington, D.C., where a revised projection of Nigeria's economic growth and outlook for the year 2025 and 2026 has sparked mixed reactions. Nigeria is advised to find strong policy responses to the external headwinds in its bid to establish macroeconomic stability and forge a way out of a pending global recession. Now, whilst we've discussed that issue, let's speak on another issue in the news. It is the 2025 Hajj, with reports that in the brackets of 43,000 to 53,000 Nigerians are set to begin the Hajj preparations, and the dates have been agreed upon by NAHCON alongside the states. It's also back to the Hajj conversations and the monies that would be spent on religious pilgrimage, with the dates in question for compliance. I don't know what you make of this, as we begin another conversation on how much states spend at this moment.
Right. You know, Hajj is obligatory for Muslims that can afford it. But if you look at the cost of Hajj now, it's quite very, very high. It's about 10 million naira for one person. And if you look at it, you know, states have a way of intervening, but the fact remains that we have challenge with forex, and that's what is actually reflected. I could remember 2 years before first subsidy removal, it has jumped to 8.5 to 10 million naira. But you can't stop people from going to Hajj. The only thing is that how will states intervene? For me, intervening by bringing money is not the solution, but intervening by making sure the economy is okay, you know, the forex is okay, and that's how we can actually manage the situation of Hajj. But I think 43,000 to 53,000 Nigerians is still not a bad one.
Now, there are certain airlines to benefit from this. Max Airs to a lift 15,203, Flynas 12,506, Umza 10,163, and Airpeace 5,128. That's the sharing formula as reported by the Blueprint newspaper this morning. What does this portend for the airlines involved?
I'm happy. It's a good one, because I think I've heard like 3 Nigerian Air, which is a good. I think Flynas is what I don't actually, maybe it's foreign, but I think it's a good one. It helps to domestic airline to actually, you know, enjoy that benefit, and I'm happy that Airpeace is actually doing well. It's going to a lift, but Mass Air is in the business already. They have been doing it year on year. So I think this is what we want to see Nigerians taking advantage of the economic advantage of Hajj pilgrimage.
Now, lastly, as we look to conclude on our final story greeting this discussion, it's on Simon Ekpa. The Finnish government and a court has approved the repatriation or extradition of Simon Ekpa to come and face his terrorism charges here in Nigeria. It's also been linked to part of the reasons why there is a heightened insecurity with a sit-at-home in some southeastern states. How much of a move in terms of squashing the sponsors and agitators would this be to Nigeria in its fight against the unrest in the southeast?
I think our government needs to be meticulous in handling this issue of sit-at-home because it's not reducing. And you have arrested Samuel Ekpa, and repatriating it will be a good one for Nigerian government and between Nigeria and Finnish government. But you know, a particular time, Kanu was saying, I did not approve it. Nnamdi Kanu said,
Says he has no ties with Samuel Ekpa.
I have no ties with Samuel Ekpa, and I'm not in charge of the sit-at-home. But we still continue to see. I think even the Igbos, the state that is affected, need to see themselves as part of this trouble itself, because the government, especially the government of Enugu, try all the cool to make sure that they don't sit at home. But even at that, citizens still decide to sit at home. That means they listen more to non-state actors. But you cannot blame them as well, because
for fear of their own life.
Exactly, there's a particular time that people just came and killed some people. But federal government need to do more. When you arrest them, maybe arresting will lead to granting Nnamdi Kanu bail. We don't know, but we need to even look at political solution to Nnamdi Kanu issues. Why this Samuel Ekpa, even when he was there, I listened to some of his alteration. It's quite how do I call it? It's quite it gives room for such a violence.
But it's also in the time it took the Finnish government to respond, because there had been calls from Nigeria whilst he was in Finland, using that as a center stage to orchestrate some of the calls to unleash mayhem on innocent citizens in the southeast. The response time it took, I know finally the court has approved that he be extradited to Nigeria, but could they have done better?
Well, I expect them to have done better, but you know, it's a diplomatic issue. It has to take their own time, and Samuel Ekpa happens to be their citizen, so they have to look at it very well. They want to trade off, you know, their citizen. Why does it justify? These are the things they actually, but it's a good one that finally they've agreed and he will be repatriated.
Well, it's also a fine place to leave the conversation this morning, Doctor. We must thank you for lending your thoughts to the issues in the news.
Thank you for having me.